Alright, what's up guys? Bailey here. Today in this video, I'm going to be going over my personal pound for pound top 15 UFC fighters of all time. This is probably going to be filled with some hot takes, but you know what? That's what this list is about, and that's why these videos are made. Let's just jump right into it, right? So my criteria of what I would consider to be, right, GOATs, I think, in this conversation, right? We're talking about all-time GOATs, top 15 guys, is obviously the quality of fights, right? Like, if we have a guy who, I mean, is going up against very good quality opponents as well, right? It's very difficult fights. They're not easy. It shows that they're well-rounded, right? That would be, I consider, a good fight. An even match, it brought a lot of adversity to them, and they rose above it, right? But if there's a guy who they come in there and they, I don't know, knock the other dude out, like for example, like Tom Aspinall, he's not on this list because his quality of opponents, quality of fights, his general ability is great, his dominance is great, but we need more challenges for him, and that's kind of an example. So yeah, general ability, we have like well-rounded grappling, striking. If they're a specialist, which I'll get into that when we get into them, and obviously the dominance, title reign, quality defenses, the win-loss ratio is obviously very relevant and important, and the impact on the sport. And I cannot undermine that one enough. So yeah, let's get started. So these are my honorable mentions, right? We got Tony Ferguson, Dominic Cruz, Israel Adesanya, Amanda Nunes, Alexandra Pantoja, Conor McGregor, and Kamaru Usman, all for, I think, pretty obvious reasons, right? Amanda Nunes is by far the greatest female fighter of all time, bar none. No one really will come close. And maybe Shevchenko, right? Um, Obviously, Alexandra Pantoja, amazing fighter, almost made my pound for pound top 15 list. But instead, I had to switch him out with someone else. But still very, very underrated, and shit, he deserved to at least be an honorable mention. Next, we got Conor McGregor. I mean, obviously, very first double champ, did a lot for the sport, brought it to new heights, brought new money, and he really just changed the game. Kamaru Usman, and kind of much like, I don't want to say like Tony Ferguson in terms of like their title success, because obviously Tony never won the title, but both guys were absolute destroyers of their division. Both were on very long tears. Tony Ferguson obviously had 12-fight win streak. Usman had the title and was almost regarded as he was almost regarded to be the welterweight GOAT, until obviously got knocked out by Leon Edwards. Tony Ferguson obviously a 12 fight unbeaten streak. Then he lost against Justin Gaethje and was never the same. So yeah, both guys, I think are completely deservable to be in honorable mentions. And then obviously I have Dominic Cruz, former bantamweight GOAT. So with that being said, now we're going to get into our top 15 list. First off, we got Alex Poatan Pereira, specialist kickboxer. Now, I know immediately people are going to be like, Bailey, what the fuck are you thinking? Alex Pereira, top 15 of all time out of anybody? Yes, for a couple of reasons. Number one, world-class striking, right? UFC light heavyweight champion, UFC middleweight champion. He did it in such a short span of time, and he's had a lot of very solid fights, right? I mean, he beat Israel Adesanya, Sean Strickland, Yuri Prohaska twice, Khalil Roundtree, Jan Blachowicz, even his fight against Silva very early on in his middleweight run when he fought in the Apex was a phenomenal fight. And he has ungodly power. And I think that what he has achieved in the short span of time that he achieved it in, and the guys he beat to do it, I think really says something about his skill level, right? I mean, when he beat Israel Adesanya, who I think at that point was right below Anderson Silva in terms of like GOAT status for the middleweight division. So the fact that Alex Pereira essentially beat him in his prime, and really kind of, I don't want to say took Israel out of his prime, but he did, because Pereira, listen, Adesanya was never the same after he knocked out Pereira. Pereira moved on. You know what I mean? He went, dominated, got another title. Israel Adesanya lost the title, and now he's on a losing streak. And I think that kind of says something about Pereira. I think it says something about what it does to you when you take that much punishment from him. And I think it says a testament about him in terms of how he got knocked out cold by Israel Adesanya, really, really bad. And the grandest stage of them all, right? Obviously, we're on national television in UFC title fight. But he came back, right? Had a close fight with Blachowicz, and then has just pretty much gone on a tear since then until he ran into Magomed and Goliath. But easily, I would put him in my 15th spot. Let's go. Next, we got Khabib, the Eagle Nurmagomedov. Now, a lot of people consider him to be top 5 of all time or even top 10, but I really don't for a couple reasons, right? But let's just get into what he is and the great things about him first, right? Listen, he's a specialist wrestler, right? He's 29-0. He completely elevated the sport of MMA, right? Of mixed martial arts. He beat guys like Conor McGregor, Justin Gaethje, Dustin Poirier, Edson Barbosa, Rafael dos Anjos, which are absolute animals, killers. They are all legit, and we all know that. But the problem is he only has 3 title defenses, and he's just not as well rounded as others above him, right? He has a good resume. He achieved great things and elevated the sport, but people just simply just passed him. You know what I mean? And I think a lot of these guys, for example, I think maybe you could agree with that are better than Khabib. But I don't know. I mean, I just think that this is probably going to be the first hot take is, I don't really consider him to be top 10 of all time or top 5 or like the lightweight GOAT. You know what I mean? I don't consider that. Next, Jose Aldo, man. Listen, Jose Aldo is at one point I would have considered him the featherweight GOAT, but Volkanovski took that crown. But I also think that he will always be top 15 of all time. Listen, man, Muay Thai and his defensive grappling was who he was, right? I mean, WEC champion, 2-time UFC featherweight champion. His first reign was 6 years, man, and he beat guys like Frankie Edgar, Uriah Faber, Korean Zombie, Ricardo Lamas, and then Chad Mendez, man. And these were all killers. His takedown defense was phenomenal, but the only downfall of him was just the fact that he stayed in it for just way too long. I feel like that, he just took some losses, always competed at a high level, but I think it got to a point where he probably should have retired. I want to say probably 4 or 5 years ago, I want to say he should have retired. You know what I mean? Even though he was still fighting at a high level, it was clear to see the direction that he was going in. Next, Anderson the Spider Silva, man. Top 15 of all time. Wouldn't put him top 10. And I think these are for some pretty obvious reasons, right? But let's get into obviously the great things about him first, right? Specialist striking, defensive BJJ. Listen, he has 10 title defenses, man. He fought guys like Nick Diaz, Stephan Bonner, Vitor Belfort, Chael Sonnen twice, Forrest Griffin, Dan Henderson, and Rich Franklin. He was way ahead of his time, and he was leagues above 95% of the division at that time. And listen, man, when he fought Chris Lieben, when he still wasn't really that well known, he destroyed him. And a lot of people thought Chris Lieben was going to win that fight, which I wasn't alive during that time period. But if I was, I still would think what I think now, which is that is absolutely ridiculous. And he laid out for, the next generation's twofold, man. I mean, he dominated his generation, went on to the next generation, and then, even dominated a little bit within the later generations until he ran into guys like Adesanya and just simply got older with time, which was his downfall as well, was just that he stayed for too long and his losses are just too big to really just consider him top 10 of all time. All right, next, we got Stipe Miocic, man. Now, he's a boxer, right? 2-time UFC heavyweight champion. Most title defenses consecutively with 3 in a row. He finished top guys, right, like Alistair Overeem, Junior Dos Santos, Fabricio Werdum, beat Francis Ngannou in decision, and got DC twice via finish. Listen, Stipe is easily the heavyweight GOAT. When he lost to John Jones, he's way past his prime. Even when he fought DC and Ngannou, he was a little bit past his prime. But to be honest with you, man, easily one of the greatest heavyweights of all time, if not the greatest. I think that general boxing and IQ, for him starting the sport as late as he did, he really did a lot of things great. Really just kind of a straightforward guy, to be honest with you. Kind of a square, and that's not a bad thing. He's a fireman, just very simple dude. Walks in, gets the job done, and leaves. And I like that about Stipe. That's why I would definitely put him in the top 15 of all time. But next, we got in the top 10. Now we're cracking some top 10 territory. Charles do Bronx Oliveira, man. Specialist grappler and Muay Thai. Listen, man, UFC lightweight champion, most submissions in history with 16, most finishes in UFC history with 20, greatest career resurgence ever of all time. Beat Michael Chandler twice, beat Beneil Dariush, beat Gaethje, beat Poirier, beat Ferguson, beat Clay Guida, and a lot of these guys were by finished. You know what I mean? He finished Dariush, he finished Gaethje. You know what I mean? He finished Chandler, I think, the first time, not the second time though. And at the end of the day, Chandler or Charles just has such high levels to his game, and everything he does is just like high level. You know what I mean? His only downfall really is his chin. That's kind of it. He's gotten dropped a lot, and I think that's his downfall. You know what I mean? If he had a really solid chin, I really feel like he would have a much better chance of winning his fights more than he already does. And easily top 5 lightweights of all time, and easily top 10. Next, we got Murad the Machine Dvalishvili, right? He's a specialist wrestler, UFC bantamweight champion, greatest cardio in the not only in the division's history, but maybe of all time outside of the Diaz brothers. He drowns people with high-level grappling, right? Finished Sean O'Malley the second fight, beat him in the decision the first, beat Umar Nurmagomedov, beat Henry Cejudo, beat Piotr Yan, beat Jose Aldo. That is a hit row lineup of fights to have, man. And the fact that he did it in the span of time and really got no attention doing it either. You know what I mean? People thought he was boring. People counted him out. And he moved and grinded and just started drowning people. And I think he's the most entertaining wrestler, not only in today's UFC standards, but maybe of all time. Because he just drowns you, beats you up, locks submissions on you, you know what I mean? Showing in that Sean O'Malley fight that he actually is like, hey, I got finishing ability. I'm not just gonna wear you down and grind you down and just, I guess, fuck around and emote on you, right? I can submit you too, you know what I mean? This grappling's here for a reason. And I think at the end of the day, he is the bantamweight GOAT. I think he is. I think he would, I don't say he would smoke Cruz, but I do think he would drown Cruz. I think at the end of the day, Murad is the best bantamweight, and I think that he can only climb up this list. I want to see him and Pantoja in a super fight. I think that would be something really cool for the sport. Next, we got Ilya El Matador Topuria, man. Boxer and defensive grappling, man. Listen, UFC featherweight champion with a title defense, UFC lightweight champion. Hopefully a title defense is going to come in pretty soon, even though I highly doubt that's going to happen. Best 3-piece in UFC history. Obviously, I'm talking about the Volk Holloway Oliveira, right? He has ungodly power. Knocked out Volkanovski, knocked out Holloway, knocked out Oliveira, beat Mitchell, boxed up Emmett, right? And finished Ryan Hall. And listen, if you know about like Emmett and Mitchell and Hall, those aren't easy fights. You know what I mean? And Ilya beat them very convincingly. Actually, no, he did finish Mitchell. He submitted Bryce Mitchell, as a matter of fact. I don't know why I forgot about that a couple seconds ago. But yeah, he beat Bryce Mitchell. He submitted him. So, you know what I mean? And I think it just speaks volumes to how tough Josh Emmett is, to the fact that he, I guess, just didn't get knocked out by him. But yeah, man, listen, nothing really much to say about him outside of it. It just makes sense to put him here. So next, we got Max Pride of Hawaii Holloway. Listen, man, he's a volume striker, UFC featherweight champion, highest significant strike record with 3,000, most featherweight wins in the division's history. You know what I mean? Finished Jose Aldo twice, beat Brian Ortega, beat Frankie Edgar, beat Calvin Kattar in his prime, beat Rodriguez, knocked out Korean Zombie and retired him, flatlined Gaethje 300, just beat Poirier in his retirement fight. You know what I mean? Max Holloway is, without a doubt, one of the GOATs of the featherweight division. You can't talk about, Volk and Aldo without talking about Holloway, and I think that Holloway easily cemented his place and I think he put himself in a place in the featherweight division where it will always be a trifecta, right? It will always be Volk, Holloway, and Aldo, right? Like, that meme of King Ghidorah with the 3 heads, you know what I mean? Except that they're all fucking tough, you know what I mean? They're all tough. And it's just like, at the end of the day, Max Holloway is, in my opinion, one of the most impressive fighters of all time. He looked very, very sharp against the fight against Dustin recently. And, moving on. We got number 6, Alexander the Great Volkanovski. kickboxing and defensive grappling. Two-time UFC featherweight champion, right? Dominated a great part of the competition in his first reign. Listen, finished Korean Zombie, beat Holloway 3 times, beat Diego Lopez, beat Brian Ortega, beat Jose Aldo, beat Chad Mendes and Yair Rodriguez. And, listen, and he did it convincingly. His downfall was he just simply didn't give himself enough recovery time, especially right before that Ilia Topuria fight where he got knocked out. Listen, man, he got head kicked by Islam when he fought Islam just coming straight off the couch. And he went up against a very dangerous man and Ilia. And I think that if he gave himself recovery time, am I saying that Ilia could we have seen the same result? Maybe. But it would have been more definitive if he gave himself that recovery time. And ultimately, when he did, he came back, and yeah, he was still a little chinny, at the end of the day. But listen, he looked great. He looked sharp, and he looked very Volk of old almost. You know what I mean? And we saw the birth of the new mythical fighter, Old Man Volk. All right, so moving on. We got top 5 now. Top 5. We got Daniel DC Cormier, man. And I know a lot of people weren't expecting this. A lot of people are going, Bailey, why is he not a little, lower on the list, right? Well, I'll tell you why. Specialist wrestler and pressure boxer, UFC heavyweight champion, 2-time UFC light heavyweight champion, double champion simultaneously, and defended each belt in the division, which is something that still no one has managed to do, much less him doing it in debatably 2 of the hardest divisions of that time. Beat Rumble Johnson twice, beat Gustafsson, beat Dan Henderson, beat Roy Nelson, Frank Mir, Josh Burnett, Bigfoot Silva, Derek Lewis, and Volkan Ozdemir, right? Listen, these were all great fights in their time. I think he easily cemented himself as top 5 fighters of all time. And also, I mean, just one of the best combat athletes, right? I mean, he's an Olympian in wrestling, came over, started doing MMA, went to Strikeforce, finishing people over there, came to the UFC, and dominated. And unfortunately, yeah, he ran into John Jones. He ran into Stipe Miocic. I don't know, only some of the all-time greats of their divisions, right? No one to worry about. Daniel Cormier is easily one of the greatest combat athletes of all time, period. Next, we got Islam Makhachev, man, for number 4. Now, I think this kind of goes without saying, right? He is, and you're going to start seeing this now. Notice this change right here, from this to this. He is a complete mixed martial artist. I still widely regard him as pound-for-pound king, number 1. He's way more well-rounded than Khabib. He's beat people at their own game. He knocked out Volkanovski. He outboxed Dustin. He submitted Charles Oliveira. I mean, he is just done. He sees your game, and he does it to you. Listen, man, his downfalls, right, is he's only able to fight once a year. He's not like guys here in America, or not even like guys in the UK, or where they can fight twice a year. It's only once a year. On top of that, he's moving up a division. So he's in a period of transition right now where a lot of people are just kind of forgetting about him, where he's almost, I don't want to say falling into obscurity, but at the end of the day, people who have short attention spans, especially in a sport like UFC, they're not going to remember, right, for intensive purposes. They're not going to remember Islam just doing this, right? They're not going to remember him beating Oliveira, him beating Poirier and Volk and all these other guys, right? And then him being okay, I'm going to move up. You know what I mean? They're just, for whatever reason, thinking that Islam is just fucking around. And I really don't know. And some people think he's ducking Ilya, which I don't think that's true either. And I think that at the end of the day, he cemented his place. In my opinion, he's probably the greatest lightweight of all time. And that might be a hot take, but I just don't know who really convincingly beats him. I know people who have a chance of beating him, maybe a better chance than others, but just not convincingly. Next, we got John Jones, man. John Bones Jones. The reason why he's not in the 1 or the 2, and we'll get to that obviously, right? 2-time light heavyweight champion, UFC heavyweight champion. I mean, and just look at the resume, right? Shogun Rua, Daniel Cormier twice, Gustafsson twice, Dominic Reyes, Glover Teixeira, Vitor Belfort, Chael Sonnen, you know what I mean? Machida, Rashad Evans, Rampage Jackson. I mean, he was given the perfect, I guess, setup to be the GOAT, right? Until it was time to represent the sport outside of the cage. Bad representation outside of the cage with the sport. Ducked Tom Aspinall, and obviously the crime controversies, right? And the PED usages, And I can go on and on and on, but it's obvious, it's all very public. I don't need to do that. And I think that that's why he will probably always be in this like top 3 spot. I think he'll just always be kind of stuck here, especially when he's behind this guy right here, George St. Pierre, right? Now he is quite the opposite of John Jones, right? He, listen, UFC welterweight champion, UFC middleweight champion, beat Bisping, Hendricks, Nick Diaz, Carlos Condit, Matt Serra, Shields, BJ Penn, Matt Hughes, and a lot. And listen, Hendricks was on Juice. A lot. This was during the era of Juice, right? This was like pre-USADA. And if you saw Hendricks, he was obviously on Juice, right? And he still went in there and he still beat him. And some people want to say that GSP lost that fight, and and maybe he did. But at the same time, Hendricks was on some fucking juice. He was obviously, come on, man, right? And George went in there all natural and just said, okay, like, I'll put my skills to the test. And he beat him. And he's the perfect representation of the sport. He's no controversies outside of the cage. He's still perfectly healthy. Even to this day, he looks great. And I think at the end of the day, when I think of a mixed martial artist, I think of George St. Pierre. But obviously with the number 1 spot, we got Demetrius Johnson. I think that he is single-handedly, I do think he is the greatest mixed martial artist or UFC fighter of all time. Now, people want to say, well, Bailey, you can't, look at the resume, you compare it to John Jones and all this other stuff, right? Well, one, UFC champion, longest reigning, record-setting, 11 title defenses that still no one's been able to break. One FC champion. When he got traded, his skills went immediately to the best guys over there, and he just won the title. You know what I mean? Beat Adriano Moranis twice, fought Rod Tang in a super fight and beat him, beat Henry Cejudo, suplexed and caught Ray Borg in an armbar, beat Joseph Benavidez. If you don't know who these names are, it just tells me that you're not willing to do research and really understand the sport. You know what I mean? Just because that he was in a no-one division at the time, you know what I mean? People want to say, well, flyweights were boring back in the day. They weren't drawing money, so he's not the GOAT. The reality of it is, it's Demetrius Johnson. He's not John Jones. He's not this tall, big, hulking dude. He's not going to draw as much attention physically because he's not big, and people are just casuals about that. People don't see Demetrius Johnson go, oh, wow, this is an elite hitman level skill. They're going to see him and be like, oh, he's a little guy. We're not going to pay attention to him. And that's the reality. But in my opinion, I do think that he is, pound for pound, probably the greatest mixed martial artist of all time. And with that, you guys, that is my whole entire list of my top 15 pound for pound UFC fighters of all time. Thank you guys so much for watching this video. And I'll see you guys in the next video whenever I make one. Peace out.